I very rarely get the chance to use Rite One on a Sunday morning, which also means that it's very rare that I get the chance to pray one of the most beautiful collects in our prayer book, the Prayer of Humble Access. I chose this particular collect this week because, first of all, it's an excellent example of Thomas Cranmer's genius when he first published the prayer book in 1549. This prayer and others like it, Cranmer searched and found and compiled from many sources and resources that were much older than 1549. And this prayer is a perfect example of one that had only been seen and said by the priest. And so rather it being a kind of secret prayer that only the priest said, Cranmer put it into the language of the people, into this book, and he put it into their hands. Thereby it became common prayer, a prayer that everyone said just before they received communion. But even more than that, I love this collect because of what it affirms at that moment in our worship. After we've prayed all that we can pray and sung all that we can sing and said all that we can say, we put our lives, still knowing that we are unworthy, into the life of God, whose property is always to have mercy, which is an incredible phrase in this prayer, whose property is always to have mercy. When I was a child, we actually played a game called Mercy. You would lock your hands together, and then you would twist and turn and bend your wrists and your fingers and your arms until you overpowered your adversary into submission, and they would cry out mercy. Being pretty short with small hands, I was quite often the loser, so this idea of mercy has kind of stayed with me in a painful way, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the mercy of God. It's antithetical to that, because the mercy of God is when God chooses to let go, to surrender, which we know is the crucifixion. God is not into a game of overpowering us, but God lets go and surrenders, and then God takes that surrender and turns it into Easter. You see, mercy is the judgment that we know as Easter morning. Mercy is God's great release of grace. And just as it is His mercy, it is also meant to be a part of our life. There was a time when Jesus says, go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. And I often think that maybe that Jesus had a smirk on His face when He said that, because if you think about it, mercy is the greatest sacrifice of all. Because mercy means that we too will let go. We'll let go of the games that we play with those around us. Let go of our anger and bitterness of the past. Let go of our need to get even or take revenge, to let go of the people that we've been twisted up and turned around with in our hearts, and to do the one thing that is so hard for us to do, and that is to forgive, which is probably why it takes a life to learn. Whose property is always to have mercy. You're free, and you are forgiven. And it is our challenge, I think, that that property becomes a part of our life as well. Your church may no longer use Rite One on a Sunday morning, but you can still open up your prayer book to page 337 and pray this prayer just before you receive communion. We do not presume to come to this thy table, O merciful Lord, trusting in our own righteousness, but in thy manifold and great mercies. We are not worthy so much to gather up the crumbs under thy table, but thou art the same Lord whose property is always to have mercy. Grant us therefore, gracious Lord, so to eat the flesh of thy dear Son, Jesus Christ, and to drink his blood, that we may evermore dwell in him, and he in us. Amen.